This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 1570, Honor Your Money History by Dawn Starks of SimpleMoneyPro.com. Welcome to another Sunday edition of Optimal Finance Daily. I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. This is the show where I narrate posts from thought leaders in personal finance every single day of the year in 10 minutes or less. And before we get to it, I wanted to make sure that you know that we have a weekly newsletter sharing tips, tricks, advice, inspirational quotes, and more. It's a great way to show your support and totally free. Just enter your email address at oldpodcast.com to join. But for now, let's jump right into today's post and start optimizing your life. Honor Your Money History by Dawn Starks of SimpleMoneyPro.com. How did you learn about money? Were your parents good with money? Did you learn to manage money at home or at school? Everyone has a different money history. Some of us are grateful our parents were good financial role models, but others weren't so lucky. Regardless of how you got to your current financial life, take a moment and be thankful. Good role models are wonderful, but the school of hard knocks is not a bad teacher either. Past as prelude. Do you find yourself repeating the money patterns of your parents? It's eerie the first time you utter some money belief and you hear your parents' voice coming out of your mouth. Some profess, particularly when it comes to finances, we marry our parents. And I feel there's some truth to that. In my childhood home, my father was the primary breadwinner. However, my mother went back to school for nursing after my sister and I were both in school full-time. We were latchkey kids, coming home from school and letting ourselves in for an afternoon snack and some playtime before our parents came home. I don't remember lots of specific conversations about money, but I know my dad would get upset with my mom when she overspent. I remember times she would take us shopping for school clothes and warn us not to tell our father. While I didn't fully understand at the time, I know now there were some rough times in our house financially, and money was a sore subject. Money patterns, and many other patterns too, often repeat in subsequent generations. As the primary breadwinner and worrier over all things financial, I have definitely repeated the role my father had in the household. In some ways, my husband often fills the role my mother did with a propensity to spend now and not worry much about future goals. If we can recognize these patterns, we can examine them. We can dissect them and keep the good parts, the constructive parts, and discard the bad parts. By taking some time to identify what's happening in a relationship and how your respective backgrounds play a role in your current day behavior, you can choose a different outcome. Don't repeat the past, learn from it, and improve on it. Teaching the next generation. The next obvious question is, how are we modeling financial literacy for our children? If you reflect on the way money was discussed in your home growing up, and if you think about how your parents did or did not agree about money, you can resolve to do a better job with your kids. If your parents did an awesome job of instilling good money habits and modeling good communication about money, then repeat that pattern. It's when your childhood family's pattern wasn't so healthy or helpful that you need to resolve to do better. If you don't know much about good money management, commit to learning more to be able to teach and model good habits. For that matter, learn right along with your kids. It's abundantly clear that kids are graduating from high school and college without an adequate understanding of how personal finance works. Certainly, there are some isolated exceptions, but on the whole, financial literacy is lacking. What we should have learned. I have linked to 3 other posts that give some topics to teach children, especially young kids. By the time your kids graduate from high school, however, they should know more. Here are money topics you should cover with your kids. Number 1, banking. How banks work, how to open a bank account, how to reconcile your account statements, how debit cards work, why it's important to keep your checkbook and bank cards safe. Number 2, credit cards. How they work, why banks are not your friend when it comes to borrowing, why credit should be used as a tool and not a crutch, how interest accumulates on a balance carried on a card, why paying your cards in full each month is the best practice, and why maintaining good credit is important. Number 3, saving and investing. How compound interest works, why saving is important, and the power of time in investing. Number 4, work. How to interview for a job, how to evaluate wages and other benefits, how to evaluate a job offer, how to be a good employee, how to increase your skills and the value you bring to the position, how to ask for a raise when you deserve one, and why hard work is important. Number 5, spending. How to create a household budget, always spend less than you earn, be mindful in your spending, and pay yourself first. Does that sound like a lot? Does it sound like a bunch of stuff you were never taught? Don't despair, just take it slowly. Many of these financial life lessons can be taught just by involving your kids in the family finances. While you certainly want to pay attention to what is age appropriate, you can teach as you are going through your daily life. While you're at it, you can also teach your kids discretion, what's appropriate to discuss outside the family and what's not. Whether or not you have excellent family role models growing up, you can resolve to be one yourself. Don't use the "I was never taught that" excuse as a pass on helping your children be the best they can be. Accept that the money history you have is yours and yours alone, and be grateful. If you learned the hard way, think how useful those lessons will be for your children. You just listened to the post titled "Honor Your Money History" by Dawn Starks of SimpleMoneyPro.com. This article had me reflecting on my own money history and what I learned from it. I've been asked before what my biggest money mistake was, and I'm probably supposed to say the 30 grand of debt I racked up in my 20s from living beyond my means. But I learned so much from digging out of that debt, and it's hard to imagine being where I am today without having that experience. I think for many of us, digging out of a financial mess is what prompts us to learn this stuff. So if you find yourself in a hole, take a deep breath. This is totally figure-outable. I do think I had a positive role model in my mom, who was the breadwinner of my family. She stressed the importance of me being able to support myself financially. Now that caused me to walk into adulthood with a strong focus on making a good income and not enough of an understanding regarding money management. Not that she didn't try, I just don't think I retained much on the management side. This resulted in me living paycheck to paycheck and blaming my level of income when the real culprit was living beyond my means and not managing my money very well. I think it can be helpful to look back on how we got to where we are, especially when thinking about how to pass that knowledge down to children. But as adults, it's also our responsibility to take ownership of our finances and seek out the knowledge that we most likely didn't receive growing up. That's why I'm so glad you're spending time with me here on Optimal Finance Daily. In just 10 minutes a day, we're expanding our financial knowledge and working towards a brighter future. And that's another weekend edition of Optimal Finance Daily in the books. Thanks so much for your support and for listening every day, of course. Have a great rest of your weekend if you're listening in real time, and I'll be back tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.